happen. So we moved here. Took me 11 trainers. You guys should know, my late husband and I were into bodybuilding, promoted shows, owned 3 stores, very heavily into fitness. So when it came to finding a trainer for Jackson, that was very difficult because of my knowledge. So 11 trainers before I found Ty Coleman, and he worked with Jackson for a week or two and said, this kid's going places. And this is when Jackson started talking about going to the NFL. And I will tell you right now, anytime I had mentioned the NFL, I'm not going to name names because anyone watching this is going to know who they are. I heard, don't feed your son pipe dreams. You should just be going for a scholarship. You're setting him up to fail. So I ignored them all. Jackson started off as a quarterback, went in AYS, and then you really have to be a quarterback. I don't know if anyone's going to argue with me, but bring it on because it's a fact. You name one quarterback that's young that his father isn't the coach, which is fine. So Jackson ended up tight end and on the D line. He was tight end and D line through AYF. And then once we got into high school, transitioned right where he said everybody said he would be, which was on the D line. He in September of June of his freshman year, going rising sophomore, they call it. I wasn't aware that that's when the training process starts. We can get into that after, but long story short, once he was a rising junior, I realized I was behind the 8 ball severely. A lot of people think it's senior year, and that was a big smack in the face because it is not senior year. You are very late if you do it then. So we found a position-specific trainer, Val Barnaby. I started taking a deep dive into what it takes to get a college scholarship. And this is where I ran into more obstacles. There wasn't a single person and I do mean this, not a single person that supported the fact that we were going to go D1. All I heard is everyone thinks their kid's D1. Everybody thinks that. And again, pipe dreams, and you should settle for D2. My son's dreams are something that I turned into goals. So in May of this year, Rising Junior, I realized we needed to get a Twitter, we needed to hit some camps. So we went, and I also realized his size. I can get into that after, but we did 9 camps in June, and it didn't make sense to me to go to a bunch of mega camps. We picked all the D1 colleges, FCS and FBS, in our area, from Villanova, Syracuse, Delaware, because the one thing I don't think people realize is if you go to a college combine or camp where the coaches are present, then they get eyes on you. This is when I learned that you really need to be on a list that we weren't on, but Jackson is an extraordinary athlete, so he did get the attention that he needed. Once I realized that another thing that people don't seem to understand is, especially older coaches, I'm saying that carefully, the recruiting process.
What is older?
Well, I'm 56, so I can call anyone old that's over 50.
So, you're okay, Dave. Dave, you're okay. You're okay. Dave's just gauging it off of whether or not you're gonna consider him old. So that's you're okay, Dave. Right. You slide in under the radar. You're good.
Good. I'm sorry. Good.
That's okay. So what I found is that there's still a lot of recruiters out there telling you to send mass emails or join this platform and join that platform. So what I realized, I've been a social media strategist since 2015. I've been trying to find my niche. I've done everything from candles to diets. I've done everything. And I realized that this really is an exposure game. So I took my social media strategy skills and I ignored everybody, put my nose down, and went straight to it that way. We had a coach ask me for Jackson's, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of it, the grades. I'm lost for words right now. Transcript, thank you. We had a coach ask for Jackson's transcripts, and our coach said, just send me his email and I'll email it over to him. You know what the coach wanted? This is a D1 school, a screenshot sent through DM. So times have changed a lot. I took Jackson's Twitter. I did have to take a little course because it wasn't the social media I know. Twitter's a beast, and I feel bad for any parent that has zero knowledge when it comes to social media, because I've been doing this for 10 years and had to take a little mini course on Twitter. The algorithms are different. When you're posting about football, there's a certain way to do it. But I took Jackson from a brand new Twitter, the middle of May, to he is just shy of 400 followers, and every single one of them is football specific. They're either a coach, another player, high ranked players, because that's super important, or recruiters, because I've hired a couple of recruiters because I wanted to see the insides of it. So I thought that was worth my money. And here we are. Jackson has Power Five colleges looking at him right now. And then you can ask your questions now. That was a lot.
Oh, Dave, you're on mute.
He's 2027, correct? Is
He
that
is.
what he is? 2027. Okay, so he's a junior, going to be a senior. So, so when you went on that journey, and you're still going on that journey, what were some of the things before I dive into my real questions? But what were some of the things that you really experienced that you thought were beneficial when he went to the colleges, and beneficial as far as what you did social recruiting standpoint, and what were some of the things that you thought, oh, this was kind of a waste of time, or I don't know if this helped me at all? What were some of those things?
One of the things that I learned is, unless you're talking about national camps and national exposure, like the Navy Bowl Combine or the NXGN camps, if a camp is more than $100, you should look into it, because it seems like when the camps get really expensive, there are way more kids and less exposure for everybody. So that was one thing I learned. When I went to the camps, Jackson, his speed's good for a big guy. When we started the camps, he was 265. He His numbers were decent. I did learn that camps measure kids 1 to 2 inches shorter than they are, and I can say that with fact because there was one mom, her son's O-line 6'5", right, which is a big deal if for anyone out there. If you are on the O-line, your measurables matter, and they measured him at 6'3". I had one camp get Jackson at 6 feet tall. So I did learn that you have to be very careful about how you stand and what you do because the height matters. He had won every 1v1 at every camp. I think he lost two at one of the camps. Long story short, he won them all. So when they do the final round, he was never in it. So by this, the Jackson's a very well-mannered, respectful kid. So when it was like the sixth camp, and he was sick of it. He won every single one, and he went up to the coach and he said, "What is the deal? Like, I just won all of it. The kids that you're watching didn't win, and I'm not going against them." And the coach was honest with him. He said, "You're not on the list." He said, "Kid, you'll be on the list next year, but if you're not on the list, you don't make it to the final rounds." So that's something really important that I learned because we were getting frustrated.
Was that college camps that was said to you, or was this individual camp owners?
That was the FCS, and I had been hearing it. I had heard
Which camp,
but it was confirmed by that coach.
Which camp was it?
It was an FCS school.
FCS camp. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. A local FCS camp.
Okay, got it. Yep.
I want to give myself in trouble. But the coach, I think the coach, he really liked Jackson.
Right.
We thought for sure he was going all the way. We thought for sure. And when he didn't, and I appreciated the coach being honest because I did have other people tell me, high-ranked trainers that are in the recruiting industry, they said, "Listen, you got to get on the list." So now that we did all the camps, we are on the list this year. So this year we won't be going to any college camps unless we're invited because we put our dues in that last year. And I do know that I'm behind the eight ball because had I started this freshman year, he would have went to camps 2 years in a row,
Right.
where they really would have known who he was. And when you're dealing with D1 college camps, I have to be honest to the parents out there. Have your son evaluated by 2 or 3 people and find out what level your son's at, because if you bring your kid to a D1 college and he is not D1 material, you're you just wasted your. They don't even. They literally toss you into another. We got tossed into another pile because Jackson came in at 6 feet tall. Thank goodness the D line coach there really liked Jackson. He called him the little guy, but Jackson was not happy. But he saw Jackson in action. They clicked. So that's the only reason Jackson's still on his radar, because everybody else, he at Penn State, we got thrown in another pile. Literally pouring rain, 50 degrees out. Jackson's killing it. He's doing so well. I'm freezing my ass off. And again, I'm gonna tell you it's raining. I had to go to the bathroom. So walking in, all the kids on the list were in the warm, cozy dome with their parents. We were literally outside with all the kids that got tossed in a pile because he measured 6'1.5" there, I think. And six, for people don't realize this either, measurable 6'2". If you want to be a defensive tackle, and Jackson specifically is a 3 tech, which I argue with people about a lot, that is a real thing. He has to be 6'2". When you start getting shorter than that, yeah. Okay. Did I answer you? Because now I get sidetracked. I talk a lot.
No, that's okay. No, it's important to hear like people's process and what they're going through, and some of the things that they're good, the bad in the process. It's important to understand like I do like how you're working through the system to figure out what works best for Jackson. Everybody's journey is specific to them. So everybody's in a different situation. And I think that's one of the things that parents miss a lot. They try to align their journey to somebody else's journey, or this kid did this. You know, I know somebody that played here. I'm like him, and everybody's journey is different. And everybody's journey is also in the time period that we're in, which is the transfer portal era, which has made all of the athletes' journey, no matter how good they are, much more difficult. Because one of the things and you might be experiencing some of this yet, but maybe not more until you start going to junior days, and I'll ask you about that kind of stuff, like some of the things that you have planned. And I've seen like Jackson does a great job. I just followed him. Does a nice job himself of posting stuff on Twitter. Obviously, you know, you like your Instagram. You do a really nice job of posting things and keeping people up to date of what's going on, what he's doing, those kind of things. But you know, in the transfer portal era, that's one of the most massive changes. So the two things to me that always is everybody's journey is different, and you have to figure out what, you know, that journey is for your child, right? And what he wants to do, where he wants to be, what his goals are, what coaches are telling you, which is really, really important. So I think that feedback is the most important thing, and being able to assess those coaches. Some college coaches will tell you the truth. Some college coaches don't want to waste their time telling you the truth, because they really don't want to hear, you know, someone going back and asking, hey, what is the situation, you know, oh, what do I need to do? Like, if they already know that they're not interested in an athlete, they might say really nice things about them and then just move on and never talk to them again. So I think that part's always difficult of the journey, assessing those things, and finding people that you think can help you. I think what's also really important is the transfer portal. I understand what goes on in the transfer portal and what schools are focusing, which the majority of the Division I schools are now focusing for portal. But it's important to understand like what schools and what position, and so on and so forth from that standpoint, and what positions are at a premium as far as like where they're more likely to take athletes that are high school players, and what schools are less likely and what positions are less likely. I use that as an example because I always say like offensive lineman, as a high school athlete that's like a giant, you know, offensive lineman, they always have a really good opportunity to get themselves recruited still as a high school athlete, because there's not that many offensive linemen that are gigantic. So she probably got a phone call. That's probably why.
Yeah. I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think you have to I don't know. I forgot what you got to do with StreamYard on that. But I think that's an important thing. And then the other thing with the transfer portal that's really, really critical is to understand, okay, do they value the high school athlete? Because that becomes an important thing. And that's all levels too. I mean, one FCS, Division 2, Division 3, because some places do, some places don't. So I think those things are
that right there. And what you said, Dave, right? Like about evaluating and valuing the high school recruit or the high school athlete. That is something that we've seen come into the limelight or the forefront or really move to the top of how that recruiting world works recently. Like that is something with the transfer portal, with NIL and all of that, the recruiting of the actual high school athlete, I think is something that in the most recent era, or I guess you want to like an update type of situation, right? Like that is something that's really moved into the forefront of whether or not approach is valuing that. And like you said, I think to piggyback off of that, the position specific of are we going to look for a high school guy at this position to bring in, develop and take, or are we only going to take transfers at this position and things of that nature? I think that is something that nowadays is so much more in the forefront, going forward.
Absolutely. No, welcome back. You probably got a call, and that's what I think that's what happens.
My daughter and I thought I had I'm fortunate, but it's a pain, but all my 4 daughters call me almost daily. So I tried to decline it. It didn't work.
I can't remember. We've had this happen. I can't remember what it is that has to be done with, because we've seen this happen.
It's on there now.
Oh, that's what it is. Do not disturb put it on. Oh, okay, there you go.
Okay.
Now we know for next time, right? Because this has happened a couple of times. We're like
very adaptable.
A speed coach, and he's talking, and all of a sudden he's gone in the middle of his thing, and we're like, oh, okay.
You guys were all on portals and position. I got that.
Yeah, so we dove into that. So what I'm curious is when you first of all, do you have like stuff like junior days where you're going to go on unofficial visits to schools? Have you started to set those things up? Are those some of the things that you're starting to do?
So I have had it's been really nice. Coach D is one of them. I've had some people that are in the industry offering advice free of charge and everything, helping me out. So what I have learned is that one of the things that portal has done is it's causing a delay in early invites for junior day. I went into this thinking, because I was on Twitter and I saw, all these sophomores having, this one offered, that one offered. You all know those aren't real offers. There's some colleges that are, I hope the parents please listen to me. There are colleges that have their social media game down to a T. Syracuse is one of the biggest ones, and good for them because they're out there. However, a verbal offer I counted. There's 27 kids, 27 wide receivers who claim they have an offer to Syracuse. So what I'm getting the portal, they're not doing the junior days around now. I guess they used to do invite to the junior days before January. But what I was told, and by one of the coaches as well, is they start the invites to junior day when the portal closes. Because if they grab a kid from the portal, then they don't need the junior day anymore. And junior days, if you get the official invite to a junior day, it costs the school money too. So we don't have any yet. And that would bring me to one of my other things that annoys me it really does annoy me. And I haven't busted through it yet, but the silence. I have one D1 coach who leaves his red receipts on. So whenever Jackson sends him updates, he
sees it.
I wish every coach out there would leave scene receipts on, and it might cause them less aggravation if they do it, because at least we know. At least we know that it's been seen. So it on a emotional and human standpoint, it irritates me. Like if you text your wife and you see red and she doesn't text you back, look, there's gonna be a conversation later on, right? I mean, you thought you didn't call back, right? So at least
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
Now I know why I get in trouble.
I make my kids put their red receipts on because at least I know they were busy. But
I think that goes, Tanya, not to cut you off, but I think that goes back to the ultimate, like, level of, a level of respect, a level of just being a human, of at least communication wise, right? Like, you may not respond to me, but at least I know you at least saw it, got it, and okay, right? Like, rather than just a straight ghost and not understand, not have any clue. Now, we've been in this long. We've been in this long enough to understand, like, these, especially the highest level, get thousands of these DMs or like messages per day. And at the very top, like, as a position coach, now we've seen staffs expand, and who's in the recruiting department in terms of, are these guys responsible for just transfer guys? Are these responsible? Like, there are people maybe reading their messages. It might not actually even be the actual position coach. It might be a GA or one of their staffers or somebody else in this game. And look, and this is coming from guys who we've talked to at the high level. Like, the amount of messages that these guys are receiving, and to just go through, right? Like, guys just, mass sending of their huddle films, and to go through, evaluate, look at it, and really give like to it. It's just, I mean, there's just not enough hours in the day, right? But at least if that read receipt was on for you, right, coming from that side of it, would at least a little bit more understanding of, at least they got it, give you some level of, okay, maybe it's here, maybe, but it is a tricky, double-edged sword. Now, if you leave it open, right? Like, because for everybody that's like, okay, at least they read it, there's also people that now are, okay, they read it, now I'm pissed. Why am I not getting a response? Like, how long does it take to send this message or to send this, right? So there's a lot to unpack with it.
Yeah, and that's where a great message for parents watching this is that if the red message is on, that's nice. If it's still irritating that you don't hear back, I know that there are certain stipulations in CAA.
Right. Yeah. There's certain windows of when they can respond, or those types of things, depending on level. And there are still some type of rules that kind of play into this a little bit. Now, whether everybody follows that or whatnot, like that's a whole different conversation. That's probably another 3 podcasts, right? Based off of that. And you'll see that as you kind of move through this entire process of, who's answering, right? Is the person answering the actual coach, or is it like a GA or a staffer or somebody else who's assigned to the recruiting world, right? It's just, every staff does it different. Every level does it different with, the parameters of, whether you're an FBS school, an FCS school, a 2, a 3, an NAIA, JUCOs. Like, look, prep schools are now in this whole mix of, with eligibility and all this kind of stuff like coming about. There's just a lot to unpack when it comes to who you're talking to and how they're going to respond to you.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that, like, when you do your social media and you have Jackson do his social media, what are some of the important things that you are trying to have him, and what you're also trying to get across, and what is the outreach goals with what you're doing?
So the first thing I'd like to tell all parents is that they're in this. I yell at my son shakes and post on social media, like most people, yell at their kids cleaning their room. Boys are there. You have to. A parent has to take an active involvement in this, or it's that important. What's really important is that the reason my Instagram football mom 2027 is because it's an easy platform to see everything Jackson's doing. On Twitter, you post, you always the game during season. You always a lot of people better do them on Monday because everybody posted their highlights. So DMs are getting the algorithm is all, so you have a less likely chance of being seen. Tagging. It's important when you're doing highlights to tag, but there's one thing that I always like to bring out. You shouldn't tag all. If you post by everybody, fine, tag him in your message. However, bottom of your it's on Twitter, there's a little thing that said add people or add tag, something like that. Real small. It's above. That's where you tag, and I believe you can tag 15 people. Those every see the list, but coaches in general, they all out there. You can tag. You also don't want to tag all the time because the you should also be showing what guns.
You're cutting in and out a little bit, Tanya, when you're talking for some reason. I don't know. She's cutting in and out, right? You hear her cutting in and out there, Derek, a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, now I can't hear it all.
I can't hear me at all.
No, you're good now.
No, I didn't move. Let
me see.
See if I can.
How's that?
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Good.
Works better. No, it doesn't.
Well, at home, your Wi-Fi is better. Are you people when you're at home? It's better with your Wi-Fi.
You should see when we got to link up to somebody at their school Wi-Fi. That's a fun one. That's a fun firewall to get through.
Computer is set up. So did that whole thing get broken up?
Yes. If you want to start again.
Sure. You guys right till I got to Twitter post highlights?
Yes, we were talking about the reach with the algorithms on Twitter and stuff.
So there's three things that you want to show about your player. One is his physical ability in his position. So you want to put the highlights up during season, super important, every week. And what I had said, just in case it didn't get heard, is that you do not want to put your highlights up right after the game on Saturday. Monday night or Tuesday, two best times to put your highlights up because there are so many players that are blasting their highlights out through Twitter that have to, they do the week. This is on Sundays. Did you guys break up there too? I'm just going to go. So when you tag a coach, like do 15 list of all the tags and stuff. It's best if you look underneath your highlight above where it says location. There's a little add or tag or something. Keeps the when you start doing tagging, you have to go through. I break it up.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. Yeah.
Okay. Don't know why. Okay. I turn my microphone back.
Still breaking up. Maybe try and go back out and go back in.
Yeah, let me see. Let me see if we can just do this real quick.
Oh, try that.
Yeah, let's take her out and then put her back in. Let's see if
that might be. I don't know.
All right, let's see now.
Is that good? It's weird the way it just died.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Can you hear us?
So you don't want to fill up. You write your message in bullet points, like just some highlights, like how many tackles did you have, or yards did you run, whatever you're going to do. Keep that short. Put the tag. If you want to keep coaches, you don't. You have to scroll 2 thumbs up to get to the next message.
Right.
And get those 3 top posts in them. The other thing that you want to always do is it's really important. Coaches want to see that off the field. It's not just like practice. Now you have to do it. You do it. What are you doing? Are you training? Are you on the field? Are you a trainer? You got to get weekly.
Yeah.
Times a week on you. There's no those 7 times a day because your goal is for a coach get what
Right.
Jackson's page, and Jack is JAX2027. It's so friendly, it's ridiculous. As soon as I get stuff on there, I'll repost what's important. Your first 3 posts are the most important. And then some kind of work ethic. And then it's important for them to know what your character is like. Well, your personal, well, to an extent, if something's happening, Jackson volunteers for the Challenge Flag, which is children that here play football. That goes up.
Right.
But he put his mother's post to me. He even around me on Twitter, and I say, "Oh, you do that?" No, because coach about the relationship that a player has with his family is when they recruit a player, they're recruiting family. You're some say, or what? Listen, you can't do that. Everything has to stay coach friendly when you're posting it on Twitter. It's
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot to unpack there. I think one of the things with Twitter is obviously it's basically the messaging tool that a lot of coaches uses, and that's what they're utilizing to interact. Instagram's a lot more difficult to interact for coaches because, especially with minors, they if I have to that person has to follow me for me to be able to message them. I have to be able to follow them. They have to basically accept it with minors in order for that to happen. So allow me to message them. Sometimes people don't know to turn their messaging on, those kind of things. And what basically has happened with, there are coaches that use it, but they more use it to look than to interact, right? Yeah. It's more of a looking thing than anything else. But Twitter is really the tool from that standpoint. It's also used as a gigantic fill now because it became an avenue for them. At first, became an avenue for athletes who we're going back some time, but like 10 years ago, it was really the athletes that were on there and utilizing it for their messaging really had a huge advantage, because of huddle links and all that stuff became big. And it was a huge advantage because most athletes were on it but didn't know what to do. Now there's a lot more information as to what to do. Like, you should have your name in your bio. That's like number one.
Make it as easy as possible to, like, name, you know what I mean? Like, you don't need the DJ Cat, you know.
It should just be your first name, your last name, and if it's a common name, first name, last name, graduating class. Or if that still is taken up, then it's first name, last name, your number maybe, or your position. Okay, those kind of things make a difference in the identification. Because as someone who does this, okay, I type in the name of a kid, all right, and I type in the name, and if they don't come up, I don't even look at it. I don't waste any more time going on it. I'm like, I can't find them. I'm not doing it.
Because it takes that much longer. You don't have that time.
You have to go through a lot of athletes to figure out the ones you want. And that's what made that's what made the transfer portal so valuable for college coaches. So if you think about it from a database standpoint, there are databases of athletes all over the place. This recruiting service has one. This, but this guy rates them. That they don't value that. What makes it they value the database if it's filterable. That's where the value is, right? So, I don't know. Red Zone, right? They write an article on kids. They write an article on people. That's great, but if it's not, if they have to then go behind a paywall to do it, they're not looking at it. So they're making money on the front side of it, but if they have to go behind a paywall to read an article, they're not going to read an article. So like for
that with the red and the other ones too, just I want parents to be warned. Some paid platforms are.
If a paid platform is very good if like you're paying for something. If it's free and open and easily searchable,
Yes.
for the college coaches. So they think, some of these services think that the best way to do it is to charge on the front end and then charge coaches on the back end. That only works if you have a truly efficient matching engine, which there isn't really one right now. Okay, so NCSA has tried to do it. It became like more of a D3 thing because college coach, there was too much information being passed and forth, back and forth. As AI improves, that will become a thing. So it may not be for Jackson era, but it may be 2 years down the road. It's coming. Like I built something myself that I would say is like 70% good, but it's not where I want it yet. So, but that's coming. Like I could see, like I'm like, okay, that's correct. That's correct. That's not correct. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
There's. Can you still hear me? I got feedback again. There's a scam. People after this is I get very irritated. I always protected bullies when I was younger. If a platform's telling you that you can fill in their template and it's going to go out, like I know for a fact that there are 2 platforms that the coaches have it set to spam. Every email that the parents think they're sending out to a coach, if somebody is hire a platform, like you're saying that you have one going 70% where you want it. The coaches, the business partners, whoever created the platform, does not have direct contact to coaches. Your messages that they claim, because this is why parents join. They think that they're going to template and send it out to coaches, and that's how they end up seeing these people. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. It absolutely does. But like in my situation, I've been supporting Jackson on one income, and there were 5 of them in the house at one time.
Right.
Money is precious. I don't have $25 to waste. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Love them because they've done great promotion. But Jackson also, the gentleman, the writer, and the evaluator, Jackson stays in touch with him like he would a coach, always letting him know what he's doing. But then you get to now go read the article. Well, you can't. Why not? You're not a paid member of that. So
that's a conversation, China, that we've had numerous times. We were literally just talking about it yesterday. The monetary aspect that has to go into just getting your, child the opportunities, right, to possibly get something that, I mean, you're investing possibly a year's tuition of a college already, just hoping that they get to this point. Now, we were referencing like, the travel leagues and all this other kind of stuff. Like there is a monetary like gate that needs to be, put forth in order to do this.
So one of the things I tell parents this all the time, because I don't know if you know my background, but like I basically invented the original combine space for the good and the bad of that. I always say sometimes the good and the bad of it. But like back in 2005, I started running showcases around the country. At one point, we were running 100 around the country. We were doing 20,000 athletes a year. 4 Heisman Trophy winners have come through. Like something like 500 first round picks have come through. 3 or 4 number 1 overalls that came through our programs. That marketplace changed a lot. By the time Jackson was starting high school, that marketplace had changed because everyone runs a showcase everywhere. It really had changed. So we do different things now, and we still do showcases, but then we do different things. We're focused in a different direction. But one of the things that I learned about all of this stuff from a recruiting standpoint and dealing with not just college coaches at the highest level, like there's probably a guy on every staff that I know. And it's like guys, I look through it, I'm like, okay, I know I either know them because they were a coach, they were at the time probably young, or they were guys that actually, believe it or not, came through my programs that are in coaching. So
many of those guys.
There's so many of those guys. Actually, it's crazy. So, but there's that. The process is for them. The first thing they're always looking for is to get rid of a prospect. That's the first. Parents don't realize the first thing they're looking for is to get rid of a prospect. They're not looking to include a prospect. They're looking to get rid of the prospect to pare their world down. So if there are things that don't match, you're gone, and you're probably gone forever unless there's a growth spurt or something like that happens. Like, you go from 5'10" to 6'4" or something crazy like that. And then
Ew.
What? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Measurables don't matter. They do matter. You're saying it right now. I can't tell you
100%.
not to put weight on Jackson. Bullshit. Sorry. That's like
You're
absolutely
good.
D tackle. He's 6'2". He needs to be 290. He needs to be 290 coming into senior year. That's where they want for college. Therefore, and I have no problem. I put 30 pounds of muscle on him every year. But people will argue with me, oh, it's going to slow him down. Oh, it's going to do that. When you're going D1 or even FCS or D2, right? You're talking about weight and height. Measurables matter, right?
Everything is height, weight relative to their speed, right? So that's everything in football.
Yep.
Unless you're a quarterback, right? And or you're a kicker, right? How far you're able to put the ball through, those kind of highly specialized positions, long snapper, like things like that. There are different things that are associated with that. But outside of, some of those positions, height, weight relative to your speed. So like I would say this, like if you're shorter and let's say you're a defensive tackle, and let's say you're 6'1", 6 feet, okay, which would be on the shorter side of a defensive tackle, then you would have to be wildly explosive for your weight, meaning your 40-yard dash range has to be incredibly fast. So like in a 4.7 or below range to overcome the fact that you're shorter, right? So there's that, and obviously, I don't want to discourage parents because there is a big part of it. But if that ratio is not correct, your on the field performance is not going to matter. So,
you are so on point. If the measurables are up, they're not going to watch the film. Slim chance that. And I said that because so many coaches, I deal with Jackson. The Jackson specifically a 3 tech, so there's things about him that, and apparently, I don't know the position that well, I'm sorry, but apparently there's not a single evaluator that has not watched him. He's really good specifically there. But his measurables fit perfectly for that. Now, if you were going to put Jackson somewhere else on the D line, his measurables don't really measure up for the other positions, from what I've been told. For instance,
height, weight, it's all height, weight, and speed. So
Everything.
Right. So even at 3 tech, depending on the speed and explosion, and I haven't watched anything, so I don't know. I know the name because I live in the Shore Conference, obviously, and I know he's a really good player, but I haven't watched any film or anything like that. So, but the height, weight, speed to the so if someone said to me they were 6'1" or 6'2" and 290 and they play 3 technique, I would say they're big enough weight wise, borderline height wise, and then I would have to know how fast they are speed wise, because then the next question would be, if the speed wasn't good enough, I would actually say that person's better going to 310 pounds and playing nose guard, right? So or one technique. So that becomes it becomes that game, and it's really, really it's discouraging for a lot of parents, because so many times you see a player that's really, really good, and you say, this guy is like, I don't know, best player in the Shore Conference, right, at his position. And the first thing you go to is you say, hey, he should be a Division I player. Well, then when you go down south, because, I played at the University of Connecticut, and we have a big network of guys that do a lot of things that played at the University of Connecticut, and now they're all doing a lot of podcasts and all this different stuff. But what's really interesting, one of our really good friends does a trench warfare podcast, and they do O-line and D-line, but he was a D lineman in the NFL, and he played for a while, like I think 5 or 6 years in the NFL, and Julius Williams, and he played, and he's down in Georgia, which is like the fastest growing fertile ground for football players, specifically defensive linemen. Specifically defensive linemen. Okay, O-linemen it's growing rapid, but specifically defensive linemen. And what's interesting, and he goes on, if you ever pull up, I put a few of the episodes on my show, but one of the guys that I do a podcast with does a podcast with him. They're both UConn guys. One was an O-line, the guy was an O-lineman. He does the podcast with Julius, the D lineman. And they have a committee of guys, literally each week that come on and they break down film on players. A lot of them are players from their own like training group. And then a lot of times it's players that people that reached out that they do a lot of like virtual D-line training, like they send them programs and stuff. So they bring those players on and they show video and all this kind of stuff. And Julius Williams, who played a boatload of years in the NFL, told me one of his greatest frustrations is that a lot of great players that he has do not get recruited at the level that he even thinks they might be at. Mm-hmm. And this is in a state where it's a plethora of defensive linemen. I've seen film on some of these guys, and I have to say, I am like, wow, these guys are good. I believe, and we talk about this all the time, that the transfer portals had a huge effect on those players, right? So it's really, really a difficult thing. But a lot of parents, for example, like in New Jersey, they realize that in today's world, they're not just competing with the Northeast. When I went to University of Connecticut, and even Derek played, okay, which is about in college, which is about 10 years after I played. I played in the 90s. 51 years old, by the way, Tanya, just in case you wanted to know. So when I played, schools in the Northeast had a footprint for the most part, and they recruited regionally. Okay. And then there were national schools like Notre Dame and Penn State. Even Penn State recruited mostly regionally. They would be Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, and then down a little bit into Maryland and Virginia. That's changed. So Rutgers recruits nationally. Everybody recruits nationally. Monmouth recruits nationally, right? And what's changed so much, and which is what's very deceptive for a lot of parents and very hard, it's not communicated to college, because they'll all say, our footprint is the 3-hour radius. Yeah, until they go into the transfer portal and there's a player that they can grab, right? So, but what I say all the time about it is that you're not just competing against the best players in your area or your state. You're actually competing nationally in most cases at the highest level. And that's what makes it very difficult. So you could be literally an all-state player and not be recruited at Division I level if certain things don't map out, right? So that could happen. And it's really, really important to understand that part of the process. I think you're doing an amazing job. I would say of like the thing that you're doing best is investigating the areas that could help Jackson succeed, right? Yeah. Get to where he wants to be, because that is the hardest. Like some people who have a lot of money, and Derek wrote up a great point about this. Football used to be, and basketball used to be this too. Okay, football and basketball used to be the sport that you really didn't need to have a lot of money in order to go and play and get an opportunity to get recruited. Baseball, lacrosse, which your son I think played, right? Or I don't know if he plays anymore, but used to play.
On shot put.
Okay, so you just track now. All right, so but
lacrosse injury risk for me.
Right. So those sports,
especially for his temperament, like my man's not shying away from contact.
Well, he might not take somebody out.
Yeah, put a pole in that kid's hand. Good God. Okay, but that's all different. Holy shit.
But yeah, so what basically ends up happening is that those sports created a model that which really squeeze out most lacrosse and baseball and softball and some other sports like that, have created a model where basically if you're not spending a certain amount of money, you're gonna be up Schitt's Creek. I mean, and that's the model they've created. And college coaches, they made it easy for college coaches just go to their certain situations. That wasn't the case for a long time in football and basketball. Basketball, you can show up at an AAU place that had 1 million college coaches. You show out. You know what I mean? You start to get on those lists, and now, you could look really good. There's less people on the court. Football was heavily used in the high schools, right? So the high schools were the predominant part of it. You could go to a high school coach, get that information. That changed. They don't value the high school coach's information in the way that they used to. Okay. There's a lot of reasons for it that really have nothing to do with the high school coach doing anything wrong. It has zero to do with them doing anything wrong. It has to do with the speed of their process and how fastly they can get information. And for me to sit down with Derek and spend a half hour with him, spend a half hour with another guy, do this 25 times over the course of a week is going to take a lot of time to get to a lot of people that I don't even want anyway. Okay. Yep. So that's what's changed that part of the process. So what's really happened there is it's created a situation where now football and basketball have become somewhat sport. You also have to pay a lot with training, development, going to camps, sometimes throwing some money away, figuring out this camp is good versus dit. Like, how do you know sometimes if you don't go, right? So
recovery,
this camp, right? Traveling. So it's all part of the process now, right? It used to be they came to you, you now have to go to them. Okay. Once you change it from them coming to you, okay, now when people are like, oh, I know this kid. Well, yes, there are the 4 or 5-star kids that everyone knows is a complete slam dunk. Those guys don't have to worry about that. That percentage is so small, people don't even know. Okay, especially with the transfer portal, it's even smaller. But that's what's happened. So when the process changes from I come to you, because I always hear this, and this part was bullshit even back in 2012. You're going to get discovered. And by the way, college coaches say this, okay? College coaches, some that we've had on, you'll get discovered. No, you're not going to get discovered. Like, even at Division III level, like, if you don't show up at my campus on TCNJ, I'm probably not going to recruit you, okay? So that part is bullshit. That's complete and utter bullshit. They will find you. That's like going into the woods and trying to find, okay, the tennis ball that you threw 10 years ago into the woods. That's what it's like. I threw a ball into the woods 10 years ago, and there's been debris and brush and everything, and now I'm going to find that tennis ball, okay? So you have to once you go to them, like you talked about, you start to get on the list. When you discover that, oh my God, we were behind the 8 ball. I got to go to these. I got to go to them. I started going to them. Sometimes you wasted money, probably. Okay. Sometimes you didn't, right? But that's part of the Yeah.
Wow, it was awful. But anyway, sorry.
No, unfortunately, that's part of it. Like,
unfortunately, that's part of it. Yeah, it is. Like, you have to and because this is where to it too. So this game, we call it a game, right? Because it's the game outside of the game to give your kid the opportunity, has changed so much, right? And even and you can talk to Dave because he's been in it longer than I have, but within the last year, 2 years, 3, like, it has changed the most probably ever in the history of recruiting and whatever in those years. So many parents, right? Well, let's start. So many high school coaches, one. Then you add parents. They're still going at this like it was a year ago, 2 years ago, back in the day, or how that process is. Not many parents are informed. And to me, this is my own take, but it's the high school coach's job to figure this out and know these answers for parents, right? But most don't, because they're only making a teacher salary and whatever it is. Oh, who cares? But it's their job to help their players get to the next level. If that's part of it, that's the first. But it's changed so much. Parents aren't educated. They don't know how to do this. They don't know the process. They don't know that. They don't know the intricacies of it, right? Like, they're not informed of it because, again, they just think that it's going to be, hey, these coaches are going to find my kid, right? Because he was really good. And he posted his huddle highlights to his 36 followers who live around the block from him and go to the same school, that now all of a sudden he's going to get this offer from Alabama. And that is not the case. The marketing and projecting of showing and putting your kid out there in these certain ways, going to these camps, going through this process is part of it. And there are some wins, there are some losses, there are things people are told to do that aren't right. And I don't think that's right in itself, but it's because like nobody is trying to not get most kids recruited, right? Like everybody wants their kids, athletes, players, whoever, to get to where they want to go. It's just most people are just so uninformed or have misinformation, because for the most part, like unless you're in it like we are on a daily basis, like you really don't know. And for how fast it changes. And now I'm not making excuses. I think everybody still needs to go do their damn homework, and like this is part of your job. But at the same time, it's like there's this misinformation, and everybody's with social media, good, bad, or indifferent. The comparison game is now so big. What's on social media is the smallest percentage of what actually goes on. That's what everybody sees, and that's how they base this entire world off. So not the truth. It's the other, like that's the smallest percentage, are those 5 stars, 4 stars, those slam dunks, those, hey, I'm going to Oregon on a full ride and all this. But that's what we see on social media. That's what's expected. And that, I think, is the biggest part for parents that they don't understand. They're sitting in the stands, next to Billy's mom, and Billy's mom said, oh, well, we paid for this and went to this, and now, he's got an offer. And they have no idea what they're really even talking about.
No, exactly. We said it a couple of times. The game has changed to exposure above all else. I'll give you an example. Coaching. It's not by any fault of their own, really, because it depends on where they're getting their information from. How
right
goes to Jackson's. Jackson sees who is coach. One of the first things going to click on coaches. He goes there and sees nothing, or sees player. That coach just did a disservice to my son, and coaches doing a disservice. Coaches need to get on the exposure game here. They need to. If my son's so great, why? I think coaches would benefit from being trained on the exposure because it's the local. I love that you had talked about being local and national. So I went into media very much because they seemed partial. There's just kids, D line and O line, and I will tap myself on the back for. I have found Jackson the most incredible amount of exposure for a D lineman. The kid's a D lineman. Like D linemen do not get exposure, but I knew that. So you can be a local hero. Listen, he got first division in one thing, and then someone put him on second team, and then some kid that didn't even play for the season was player of the year. So parents have to be very careful when they're paying attention to local exposure, because it's bias or what it is. But my point is, I had unintentionally have a star player that I really help with exposure. Once I explained myself, the coaches were fine. However, when I talked about exposure, I meant national. Nobody knows what Shore Savages is outside of New Jersey. Nobody knows what Shore Sports, that you can be and even if you go full New Jersey, there's a lot of people that don't even pay attention to what the Shore is doing. So you have to step outside of that. Your kid can be he can be the star of the Shore, the star of whatever county you want to talk about, right? But then Georgia is a perfect example, because I don't know if you know this, on purpose. Because if he truly is a Power 5 recruit, then he better hold himself against those kids in Georgia, because that is where it is. One of the ones, it's growing, but it's a new All-American game. He got put on second team. I, of course, was pissed. My son just says, Mom, it just means I have to prove myself. They don't know who I am. Don't worry, I'll be starting. That's my son's mentality. But it'll just go to show you, even before we walk in the door, he's from Jersey. They don't know who he is from a hole in the wall. And he's on second team immediately. Then an NXGN camp. And rather than one in our area, I decided to go down to Georgia because I know that the competition is going to be different. Just like when it comes to stars. Say stars don't matter. That's bullshit. Can you make it with stars? Sure. But if you have just 3 stars, the attention that you get, because the media outlets you want to get involved are 247. What's the other one? On3. I don't know them all that well.
On
247 is the one that's really like is the big recruiting from what I've
Dave,
learned.
you're on mute. You're on mute, Dave. Now you're good.
On3 and 247 are
Right.
the
Used to be rivals, but that's
used to be
kind
rivals. Rivals kind of died a little bit, but the stars thing comes first with offers. So that's one of the things that people don't realize, that like until you get offers, they're not giving you stars unless your dad was uber rich and he paid somebody. Okay, that's the only way you're getting stars.
Which happens.
Which
happens.
And you can listen. And these other places, there's like you can. Outside of On3 and 247 Sports, for the most part, anybody else that gives you stars is probably like just for your own.
Oh, I've seen that.
Feel good. Okay.
Stars next to a kid's name, and I'm thinking he didn't do like any. And then I look. Yeah, there's a recruiting company that, and it'll say this next to it.
There's a lot of them. So they're playing. Those guys are playing like the exposure game. They figure, you know what? I get that they're doing that part of it. They're paying, they're writing whatever article ranking a guy. They're trying to get people on people's radar by doing that. And then hopefully they get recruited. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. But the true stars really come from when you get offers, and that's when you'll be on 24/7 or On3, right? So that's an important thing. And if you think about it, because of the transfer portal, stars don't even matter. And nobody cares about stars in the transfer portal. There is no stars. So
Right.
it doesn't matter what
because
stars.
for the most part, those slam dunks or star guys aren't the ones in the transfer portal, right?
Yeah, but the three division, there's 3 Division 3 players, one from TCNJ, by the way, that are gonna, when they hit the transfer portal, are gonna have opportunities pretty much wherever they want. Okay. And they're Division 3 players that have probably never gotten a star ever from anyone. But they are going to hit the transfer portal as soon as that opens up. And those 3 players will have their pick of where they're going to go. And they're Division 3. Okay. They're one's a bullet, like ex-track kid. The kid from TCNJ is a tight end. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. Will have a chance to get drafted if he does well.
Measurables.
There was one other guy, I can't remember. It might have been a receiver also. So those are like the 3 top players in Division 3. Not top players meaning like I don't know if they were the best players in Division, but the 3
they
guys,
might not have the best stats or any of that type of stuff.
They do. So that stuff is irrelevant. You know what I mean? And then, but what's really important to understand is that, and this is really like critical about the recruiting process, that you're not chasing stars. Exposure is good. Relationship is what gets you the offer. So exposure is trying to lead to a relationship, some relationship. Until you could do all, like you could expose all you want until you get to the point of relationship, where that athlete then begins to be able to have a relationship, meaning that obviously they're interested is really the first side of it, right? That's when the relationship begins. Once that relationship begins, where that relationship goes, does it move towards an offer? Does it not? Those kind of things. Do they like you? Do they not like you? Do they think you're a good enough player? Are you on their board? How far on the board down are you? And so those things become, once that relationship starts to happen, because you can expose to thousands, you could build relationships with hundreds, but you're only going to end up with a few that you have true opportunities at from a relationship. So the relationship then forms into an opportunity. So it's a funnel. It's literally a funnel. But the first step is really exposure, right? Like most people haven't even done that part. Exposure, which leads to a relationship, which leads to an opportunity, right? And that's really what it comes. Then you figure out whether that relationship's strong enough that you want to take that opportunity, or whether they want to take the opportunity with you. Everything in between. But that's really the funnel that how it works, and it is exactly the same as if you were trying to generate business. Okay, right? In order to get business, if I wanted Tanya as my customer to pay a lot of money to be able to be with me, whatever that is, I have to find thousands of Tanyas that are interested in my product, and I'm interested in doing business with them, to get to hundreds of people that I might talk to. That becomes 4 or 5 opportunities that might be Tanya doing business with me. And it's the same exact process. The product is the athlete. The product is the university. Products have to meet and be able to work together in order to put the on-the-field product together. And what's hard for people, especially parents, very, very hard, because you love your child. I have a child that's 10 years old that plays football. And by the way, I am that football dad that has my son as a quarterback. So, it's
at least it's not 100% of the time though. Like Dave does have other guys that do it, and they do it. He does it right. He does it right. He does it right.
I wrote
what it is, 100%.
Yes, Derek thinks that's a player anyway. So and that's where he does play. He does play defense. So, but it's
that's where he's going to make his money.
That's really where it all goes, and that's really an important thing, because as parents, the hardest thing is to look at your child, okay, who you love, and figure out, is this a packaged product that someone else would like to buy, right? And that's the hardest thing, because that's really fundamentally how college coaches, they're never going to say that. They're not, because obviously it doesn't make sense. But how else could it be that a guy, Jed Fish, who was an all-state tennis player, okay, didn't play a lick of football. He's a Washington coach who may be the next Michigan coach, but he's one of the candidates at a few different places. Fantastic football coach, never played a lick of football, okay, GA'd with Steve Spurrier back in the 90s and moved up from there, could become the head coach of one of the top premier football universities, because he understands what the product is and how he's got to get that product to perform. It's not only about, yes, football knowledge is important. And obviously he's gained that along the way. If you look at his resume, it's like 50 different places he's been.
Oh, yeah, he's been all over.
But he understands that product. Sometimes a guy who didn't play football understands that product better than people who are in football. He understands it's a productized business, and he's got to be able to get the products that he has and the product that he puts out on the field, the players and his university puts out on the field, has to be good, right? And that's so hard for parents to understand. It's hard for me to understand, okay? That's not it's always been that way to an extent, but it's never been more out is now. And the greatest thing is this podcast with Busting with the Boys, where they brought in Ed Orgeron. He'll say anything, okay? And Ed Orgeron talks about,
so good.
Someone asked him, because he's been out of the game for a few years, if he came back as a head coach. I think some guys have entertained bringing him in as a head coach. And they asked him, well, what has changed from when you were a head coach, when you had Joe Burrow and them, to now? And he said, back then, you had to go, if you had money, you were going to go out in the back door to give them the money. Now you can go through the front door to give them the money. And that's the biggest change and that's someone who, by the way, understands the productization of the sport. He understood back in the day that if you didn't work out a deal for that player, you weren't getting that player. Maybe it was money, maybe it was a car, maybe it was just all kinds of perks. Now you can put the money right in their lap and say, here's what I'm giving you, okay, and do you want it or not? All right, and that's obviously at the extreme levels, but it goes all the way up the ladder. A Division III coach might be able to offer academic money, right? And that might be what entices you. Obviously, at the highest level, they're offering real money. that you're actually going to get to play.
Because that's coming. Watch.
Well, what's that? Say that again.
Investors, big.
So that's already happened.
So the University of Utah just signed with a private equity firm.
They're
right?
going.
So
they're in final talks. Final talks.
Right.
Watch.
Private equity will be in every single university in some form or fashion, and they will sell shares of that athletic program in order to grow it. Because what does it come down to? It comes down to money, right? So now if University of Utah gets a $500 million infusion into their athletic program because a private equity firm buys them, okay, or a portion of it, maybe they buy the majority of it or whatever it is, and they're able to sell shares of that private equity group to private investors, that brings in a ton of money. Now they could not just upgrade facilities, but now they could pay infinite amount of money to the players that they think should be better. It's even better than an NFL team, because an NFL team is limited by the rules. Yeah. I'm sorry, say that?
Have to start paying. Is it over at Michigan?
Yep.
10 and 20 million is what they're
paying.
Yep. To the NFL, and you get a 4-year contract with the NFL. I mean, you're same almost. What they're going to do, just like defensive tackles. I'd love to get into the NIL. There was a time we were lucky to get 2,000. Do you know that defensive tackle is close to $1 million now a season?
Absolutely, it's a prime time position.
Depending on the level that they are, absolutely. So there's not. I mean, the quarterback from Michigan is thinking about going in. He's got $12 million over 4 years to come to Michigan, and 1 year later, he knows that his value could be that he could go more if he goes somewhere else.
Yep.
Because I actually just learned this last night. The reason that some of the colleges like Michigan, you'll see the transfer portal because they'll negotiate players before somebody else. Because in question, I just read this last night. He's up for an NIL contract with a new company right now. They want to sign him. Parents, if you pay for nothing, you pay for camps, you don't pay for training, they pay for it. NIL company you and tells you it's going to cost you this, this, and that. They're full of shit and run, because that's not how it goes. If you go into the portal, you can no longer play at that school. I was reading an article about D2 kids, 65% of them have nowhere to play after the portal because they went into the portal and now they can't go back to the team. Is that a rule?
No. So the school does not have to take you back.
Right.
So once you go to the portal, okay, you go in the portal. A school may pick you up. If a school doesn't pick you up, there are kids that are allowed to go back, meaning they'll say, okay, if you go into the portal, we'll welcome you back. Actually, Jim Mora did that last year. It actually worked in his favor. He allowed a bunch of guys jumped into the portal to see what they could get, and he allowed them to come back. I thought it was a mistake at the time, but it actually worked in his favor, because there was the receiver who's going to be a first, probably not first round, but he's going to be a mid-level draft pick, like mid-round draft pick. He was entertaining. He went out and visited Michigan, and then he decided he was going to stay, right? So a player sometimes, now the risk obviously is that player may go, but it worked in his favor. It worked in his favor, and they're, depending on your situation, it could work against you, it could work for you, but they don't have to take you back. Jim Moore did not have to take him back. He did not have to say, yes. He could have said when he went in the portal, you didn't get what you like, sorry, that's it. So there's a bunch of players that are in the portal, they're stuck in purgatory, and usually because they expect, a lot of times when they're stuck in purgatory, it's because they didn't play, they went into the portal, and they want to either stay at the level they're at. Usually it's a lateral move, and now nobody wants them, and they don't want to go a level lower. That's usually why they're stuck in purgatory. If you go into the portal and you're Division III and nobody wants you, you're screwed. But
there's nowhere else to go.
There's nowhere else to go. I mean, I don't know. You can't go back to high school. So there's nowhere else to go. But if you're at Division II or above, that's usually what happens, that they think if they didn't play, this coach screwed me, whatever, I'll go into the portal. Someone doesn't pick them up, but they don't want to go a level lower. The guys who are willing to humble themselves, go a level lower, probably do get picked up. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we had a player that was from Carolina, first wanted to go to a Division I school. When he went to the portal, that did not happen. He humbled himself. He went to Division III school, had a great season this year, played a ton right away, and has done a great job at Union College. Okay, which is actually
a playoff team, by the way, right? Like, and the team was, it's like a win. It's a winning team. I think that too, not to get off on a whole line, the right fit. Go to a school or look at schools where those coaches want you. Stop trying to force, round peg in a square hole. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, guys, I think that's some of the everybody gets so caught up in level, FBS, FCS, 2, 3 with the way the transfer portal is now. Like, and we've talked to these types of coaches. If you feel like you've gotten screwed in the high school recruiting process, go to a smaller school, dominate that level of competition, and transfer out, or go somewhere bigger after your year.
Or maybe you like it and you want to stay. Okay.
And that's when we've talked to these, say Division III coaches. Most of the time, that's what happens. They go there, they love it, they're the star, or they play really well, they win, and they stay. Or, hey,
I'm going to jump off in a sec because I have to go on another podcast, but I want you guys to continue the conversation. It's a great conversation. I want to give you, this is free advice.
Go ahead.
Okay. And if you do this, I think it will help Jackson tremendously in this process. So you're going after the Division I schools, and I'm sure you're going after that process, and you're reaching out and you're doing all of that. Pick 5 schools at each level below the Division I that you can build all the way down, that you build a relationship with, that you continue to build a relationship with. Just so I always say, like, I hate it when people dream kill. It drives me crazy. Don't dream kill, right?
Absolutely do. I haven't gone.
So you pick it all, you go all the way down. You go all 5 all the way down, and you build a relationship with those schools. So you get active in that process. Obviously, you have your schools that you're talking to at Division I level, and you're already starting to do that process, right? And you pick 5 at each level: FCS, Division II, Division III, and you go through that process, right? And you build relationships, and you start the process of the schools that you're most interested in there, right? And see if those guys will be interested in you. And what will happen is, you end up at Division I and you succeed, okay, with your goal. There's nothing you have to worry about from there. For some reason, something doesn't happen. You already have the relationship part developed at the other levels, okay? You could always say no to those schools. And I'm going to use myself as an example. When I was coming out of high school, this is a totally different era, so it's not going to relate in the sense of what happens now. But believe it or not, Division I schools used to be able to offer over 100 scholarships. Okay. Now they've gone to this model where it's 103 and then you don't need walking. But they used to be able to offer, at one time, they used to be able to offer unlimited. By the time I was going through high school, they used to be able to offer over 100 scholarships. I think it was 105. Before my senior year, my junior year, they went from 105 to 85. Okay. That was how many scholarships were. I was getting recruited by and I'm not saying this is not bullshit, my father could confirm, every single school in the country, okay, Division I. I was a very good student. I was getting recruited Ivy League. I went through summer, and then we didn't know anything back then, so like all these schools invited me to go to summer camps. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't go to any of them. I was still getting recruited, okay? Summer ends, and I'm going through the whole entire process. And this is when you could get scholarship offers at the higher levels late. That's how it was back then. Senior year, most of the scholarship, it completely changed. But this is how it was back then. And then, so what happened was, I went through the whole entire process. All of a sudden, it's like November, and I haven't heard anything. Nothing from any of the schools I was talking to. Well, it turns out that if you were talking about the 105, the drop in the 20, I was a borderline guy. Okay, that would have been a Division I guy had it stayed 105. I didn't have anything at this point. Okay, so now I went from the University of Massachusetts comes in and says UMass comes in. They were FCS at the time, so was UConn where I played. They come in. UMass was the first one to come in. UMass comes in and says, "Listen, we're top level FCS program. I know Dave has Division I offers. I just want to throw my name in the mix in case something happens." And my father, who was a phys ed teacher, was a track coach and phys ed teacher, turned around and said, "What are you talking about? He has 0 offers. 0." Okay. He did not, and the aha was like, oh, because of the drop in scholarships, that I was on the borderline. Okay. And so what happened was he immediately offered me. And then basically almost every FCS that was in the Northeast ended up offering me and all the Ivies. But at that point, I had nothing, right? And then we went through the process because I stayed in a relationship all the way through. I never Division III schools recruited me. FCS schools recruited me. UConn recruited me all the way through. I maintained a relationship even though I was not interested at all. Okay. I remember my father brought me up there for a junior day visit, and I was going already to Sarah. I already went to all these big places, Virginia, Sarah. I didn't even care. Like I went to UConn, I was there, and my father was like, "You should, you never know what's going to happen." But I maintained a relationship. He taught me really well from that because he was a teacher and a coach. And schools like Hamilton, which was a Division III school, they told me, "Dave, if you don't go to Division I, you could play both football and track here." I was a very good track athlete. You could play both here. So I maintained really. There's another school, Randolph-Macon, said the same exact thing, Division III. So I had relationships through. It wasn't on purpose. It was just because my father told me to maintain relationships. So when that all happened, because I had a relationship with UConn, okay, already, and they came in and offered, and I went and ended up visiting there, and I only had Temple, which was terrible at the time, in Maryland, which was like the worst program in FBS at the time. I was not going to go to those schools. So UConn was in the mix. UMass was in the mix because they were the first one to offer me, right? Princeton was in the mix. So I ended up choosing UConn. But if it didn't work out and I had to go all the way down to Division III, I already had other schools I could go to. I could have went to Hamilton, could have went to Randolph-Macon, probably could have went to any of the NJAC schools if I wanted to, right? Because those guys all knew me. So I had that relationship. That's why I say do that, because what happens is you never know what's going to happen and you never know because of the rules what's going to happen. Right now, the transfer portal's in vogue. Who knows if they change something next year? Who knows? You don't know what they're going to do. So you build those relationships all the way through. That way you always have an opportunity, right? I didn't know they were going to change the rule from 105 to 85. I didn't even know there was a rule, honestly, when it came out. It wasn't until the coaches started telling me when I didn't know what was going on. I had no offers, and all of a sudden these FCS schools came in, offered me, realized I had no offers, and boom, like one guy told another guy, and they were all there. I mean, literally the next day, it was like I went from having very few people visiting me to every day I had someone visiting me. I mean, like multiple schools. Division II schools are throwing themselves in the mix. I remember one of the best pitch guys was Westchester. That dude pitched me. I mean, I was like, man, if this was a higher level, I would go. This guy was, I don't even remember who it was. He was unbelievable, okay? And that's one of the things about the recruiting process that a lot of families forget about, is that it ends up, you want to get to the point where you have relationships, because once you have relationships, then you'll have opportunities. And if some reason it didn't work out at UConn, it ended up working out, but let's say it didn't work out at UConn in today's modern era, I had a lot of schools that I had relationships with that I could have called up and said, hey, you know what, I'm jumping in the transfer portal. And there were probably a lot of them that would have taken me, because I had a college coach, and this happens now all the time, but my coach got fired when I was at the end of my redshirt freshman year, and I was the starting fullback as a redshirt freshman. There's no doubt I thought I was going to the NFL. I'm like, I'm going to be a 4-year starter. New coach came in, Skip Holtz, Lou Holtz's son. He hated me as fullback. Hated me. I moved over to linebacker. I ended up starting at linebacker. end up having a great career. You know what? In today's modern era, Skip Holtz would have came in. I probably would have boogied on out, you know what I mean, to another school, but I would have had opportunities. Now, I stayed. It worked out really great for me. You know, everybody's different, and you got to do your own situation. But that's my biggest piece of advice. If you could go and make sure you have all the ducks in a row, you continue to reach for the schools that you want to reach for. You develop relationships with the other schools as a JIC just in case. They know that's going to happen. All these coaches know lots of kids fall through the cracks, and that way you have it no matter what happens. You go to a Division I school, nobody's going to be upset with you. They all understand that process. If you blow one of them off that you think you could have a relationship,
now that changes the game.
Something happens and you try to go back to them, they're going to tell you to, go fly a kite. You know what I mean? So I think that's an important thing. And I do have to boogie, but I want you guys to continue because it's a great conversation. Tanya, I can't thank you enough for coming on because parents need to hear your journey because you have a football player that's a very, very good football player that has done unbelievably well on a great team, like a team that, your team was unbelievable this year, right? So, yes, absolutely. They need to hear that journey. So I will let you go and continue, and then I got to jump off. Derek, great guest. Tanya, it's awesome having you on. I'll see you guys. If you ever need anything from me, you can reach out to me. I followed your son on Twitter.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, have a great day. Let me jump off here, and you.
So when he talked about building relationships, the greatest example is that we went to our first and only camp. The D3 coach, he was coaching. I think he was I don't even know. He was a position specific coach, D3. He's the one who invited Jackson to the camp and stayed in touch with him through Twitter. We go to the camp. That's one of the camps Jackson got tossed to the side on. He came and talked to us after. We were honest. We felt like we weren't even seeing him. He's like, no, but stayed in touch. He's now a coach at Lehigh.
Well, that's the thing too. And I think that, Dave talks about relationships. Look, it's the same thing in comparison for high school parents or whatever. It's the same thing as if somebody leaves a public school to go to a private school, right? Like a lot of coaches want to, and I don't know if this is the same way, just for me personally, I never played that game. Now, whether it's because I've coached in a private school setting and a public school and going back and forth, right? Look, I never fault a kid or a parent for wanting to better their kid's situation, right? Again, they may be making this decision off of misinformation, off of something. Look, there are 1,000 things that go into this decision, but I never fault parents for that. Look, it's your kid. They're the prized possession in your life, your world. Everything revolves around them. So yeah, are there some parents that 100%, but it's not they're not coming from a place of negativity in that move, right? So if they feel like their kid going to a private school over a public school or this school over that school, you don't burn that bridge and now kind of, oh, well, F that kid or whatever, if he wants to be that guy. Some guys are like that. And you know what? I don't know. If you can put your head on your pillow at night, looking negatively or speaking negatively upon a 16-year-old kid, then dude, okay, that's your world. That's how you want to live. All right. That's not me. Look, hey, buddy, good luck. If you ever need anything from us, we're here. And you know what? At the college level, this happens a lot more where they went to a situation, they're not okay with it. Well, guess who the first coach they're going to contact when they're looking for something else or they're in that portal is going to be? It's going to be the guy that was, receptive and communicated and was okay with, hey man, I get it. You want to go there. And look, even from my own process of, getting recruited, look, I went to a small Group 1 high school in North Jersey. I was an undersized, safe type guy, wasn't very fast, right? Now, statistic wise, I was above a lot of guys. And when it came to accolades in terms of all state and all this, I had all of that. But guess what? I didn't have one offer with any money for anything, right? And, My goal personally was to go to the highest level I could at a school where they had the major that I wanted, because that was going to be the key to my world. Was I wanted to do something where it wasn't work, right? So I was going to try and set myself up for that. It just so happened that, and it was the last school. I was also a like both side of the ball type of player. So I got recruited at a lot of places as an athlete. They didn't know what side of the ball I was going to play. Some schools recruited me that way. Some recruited me as a receiver. Some recruited me as a DB. And like, hey, I want to play defense in college. Okay, that eliminated a bunch of schools for me. And guess what? I didn't want to play in Pennsylvania. That was just a thing for me. So that eliminated a large number of schools that were recruiting me as a D3 aim type of player, because that's where that world is, Pennsylvania. And okay, now you have to start looking at some things. The very last visit, and it wasn't an official visit because I had gone on some overnights and whatnot, was to Sacred Heart University. I don't even think I got into the football office. And I told my parents, this is where I want to be. And you know what? They were happy to have it. They understood, okay, we're kind of getting a steal here. And so they put together some things for me. It wasn't a scholarship. It was grants. It was, hey man, you got a 3.7 GPA. We can find you academic money. And I just felt different going on campus. That's I tell people all the time, you have to visit these schools on campus. You can't just go off of what somebody else says. You can't just pick it because it's an FCS or it's whatever. And you know what? Like, now you get there, okay, there's a little fuel and a little fire in your heart. Like, hey man, like these coaches don't even know that like I'm that guy coming in, right? And because that was one of the things that burned me up. Like within that freshman class, there were guys that every coach knew their name, and they didn't know who I was other than the guy that recruited me. And you know what? That made me work that much harder. And you perform, you do these really, really good things. And then, okay, well, here, buddy, in that exit meeting, guess what? You're getting more money. And here's what it is. And now here I was going to go back to a school that was $45K a year. I had gotten half of that already. So I only paid half my freshman year. And because I performed both on and off the field, athletically and athletically and academically, I was going to go back, and that next year I would have only been paying $10K. You know what I mean? Like, so there's things in this process. And look, obviously it's changed. And look, everybody's story is different. I ended up transferring to a Division III anyway, right? Like, you know, I lost my cousin to leukemia. We knew that was going to happen. So I needed to transfer home and be closer to be around him. And a D3 school literally called me, probably illegally, right, and said, I heard you're home. Would you like to come and play? I understand your situation. You know, you have verbatim of like, that comes first. Look, greatest decision, you know, it was a decision that at the time for me was perfect, right? There wasn't a transfer portal. I didn't know the world of like, hey, I'll just take a semester off and go back, whatever it was. I came home, and look, it's created a network and opened my eyes to a lot of things, because here's the other part. I played at a Division III school, Montclair State. And you know what? I played with players that were better there than they were at FCS at Sacred Heart, just because of these are these situations. Kids nowadays, and for you're doing such a great job of ultimately marketing your son and putting him in the right situations and educating not only yourself, right, but, you know, others around you. Because if people aren't looking at your stuff and asking you questions and whatnot, like, they're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? Because it's just such a different world. I think people are always fearful of asking questions because they don't want to look a certain type of way. But would you rather, you know, go about it negatively and whatever, or ask the question and look stupid? Like, and it's something, I get it. I totally understand, because we're in a world where, you know, everybody wants to be fit into a category or look above others. But look, understand that for the most part, everybody wants to help, but sometimes that information is the wrong information. So you need to really do the research on the people you're asking these questions to. Go directly to the sources. With social media now, like, you can talk to anybody about it. And the more people you talk to, you're going to get a different response from everybody, right? But the most that align is probably what it actually is. So take that and then continue that process. But it's a difficult one, and it's strenuous, and it's a lot of freaking work. And I tell my players, like, dude, like, if you want to get to the level that you say you want to, you need to work just as hard on that side of it as you do with your training, with your play. And that is only to give you an opportunity, because nothing is guaranteed. You could do all of this stuff, quote, by the textbook that's written in pencil, by the way, right? Like, this is all, like, everything changes, or we can go back on it and change things. But this is only to give you an opportunity. You could do all of this, quote, right, and still not get exactly what you want, because that's the percentages that are the smallest. But again, like I said before, it's what we see the most of. Right? Yeah. 3% of high school football players play at the next level. Yeah. Irregardless of money, what level, 3%. Do the math. Like, and football is a really, really, really hard thing to do. You're practicing more than you're playing. Your lifespan in the NFL is like maybe 3 years now. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not something that's like, hey, let's go play in a pickup basketball league at LA Fitness or whatever it is. Like, football ends, the ball gets deflated for somebody at all points. I get it. You want to maximize your potential for what it is right now. So if you're not all in on every bit of it, if people aren't calling you crazy, then you're not doing it right.
Well, I must be smashing it then.
Yeah. And listen, again,
I have a deal.
For you, Tanya, I think too, as a single mom, as a woman, right? Like, people are intimidated by the way you go about it, right? Because but here's my part. You know what you want. You're not going to dream smash or whatever it is. We're going to do every single thing that we could possibly do to put you in that right spot. And you're also a realist, right? Because I think personally, look, and this is all me, right? This is just me, and my outlook will be very different, right? As cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as people might think you are in how much you're putting into this and how you're going about this, right? There's also that level of all in and realist, like, hey, okay, we thought it was this, but let's maybe take a step back and hit it this way because I learned something new. You're educating yourself daily, if not multiple times a day, right? Like, you're putting in just as much work as Jackson is. And you know what? Like, at the end of the day, wherever this process ends up, right? Yeah. Like, and this is where I'll get on my little whatever, like God's going to put you in the right spot irregardless. But at least, like, hey, dude, I gave every little bit of it. And at the end of all of this, like, you'll be able to sleep at night. You've raised the son who's like, he has all that work ethic and all the stuff off the field that's going to make him successful, whether football is the way of whatever. Because again, the ball deflates for everybody at some point, right? But for me, as I approach it personally as a coach and all of that, parents, like, the delusion of some of it is scary, right? But I understand it and respect it, but don't make it personal in terms of, if that guy didn't get back to you, it's not an FU, because what do we know that he has going on? You know what I'm saying? I mean, shit, we just saw last night the head coach from Michigan lose his job because he's having a whatever with a staffer, and now his life is literally gone because of why? Shitty decisions. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the stuff, like, here these guys are like, he's the head coach of Michigan. Here's this, here's that. And meanwhile, all of this craziness, immoral, whatever stuff, like, and we don't know the true story, so who knows about that, but this is all going on. So just worry about, like, where you are now and trust the process. The social media thing makes people want to do things, and everything has to be fast and this and that. And like, like, I need it now. I want this offer to be able to tell the other mom in your town that, like, my little boo-boo has, like, an offer that's, if he actually says I'd like to commit, is not even there. You know what I mean? So the biggest part for me will always be go where you're wanted, because that's going to ultimately set you up for just an entire better life in terms of being on campus with somebody who actually wants you there, cares about you on a level more than how many tackles you can make. And now, look, I'm speaking in percentages here because not everybody is like that. Some guys are going to lie, like they're going to be full of shit. And they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, you know, he's this, he's that. That's part of this whole process. Develop those that. And I'm usually this person that has to be the honest one. And a lot of people get pissed at me for it. But I care about you enough to have that really, really hard conversation and kind of let you know. And look, I hope you prove me wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, please come back to me and say, Coach, like, told you I was a scholarship guy at you know, a freaking Big Ten school or an SEC school. Like, I want you to do that. Understand that. But for me, I can't, like, unless I really feel that, like, I got to be honest with you because I owe you that. I care about you that enough like that. And I think a lot of parents don't look at it like that. And then for coaching, it's really hard because it's about individuals, right? Like, for me, if a guy tells me he wants to play college football, like, you get put in a different category. Okay. I'm going to coach you harder. I'm going to be hard. I'm going to be tougher on you because I know what it's like to get there. And I think that's another thing that parents don't understand. Like, well, and even players sometimes, like, why, coach, like, you're picking on me. It's like, no, dude, you told me you wanted to play college football. And this is what that's going to entail, right? I'm going to coach the guy who just wants to be in the yearbook pick, or just wants to be able to post on Facebook, or, you know, Facebook. There you go. I dated myself on that one, right? Or put on, like, you know, the likes or whatever because you're wearing the jersey on Friday. Like, that's different. Everybody's journey is different. Go where you're wanted. Get on campus. Tanya, I think you're doing a great job of marketing, right? And you can kind of see it just from where you were to where you are now and continuing that process, right? Because obviously, what does everybody tell you? Junior to senior year is the biggest year for scholarships and offers and this and that. You've already run that gamut of camps last year. Now you have the ability to pick and choose. And now he's on all those lists, doing something that I think is pivotal in this grand scheme of recruiting. If you want to get recruited at that level on a national scale, you need to go other places outside of your little protective bubble, right? Now, look, unless you're in the state of Florida, Texas, California, Georgia, like, guys, everybody gets ranked in terms of what's good, what's bad. New Jersey, maybe a top 10 football state, maybe, right? Way better than Massachusetts, right, Tanya? Way better than Massachusetts, but, and no offense to Massachusetts, right? No offense, right? And look, I don't throw shade at anybody. I have really good friends that are coaches at high level programs in Texas, in Florida. It's just different, guys. It's different. The makeup of it. I mean, look, there ain't many high schools in New Jersey that have first block of the day is football. Like, so in other, like, where you live geographically, sometimes already puts you behind the 8 ball in terms of getting recruited on a grand scale. But I think going out with the ability to go to these camps and measure up against some of the, quote, top guys on these lists, right, and see where you stack up. And I always wanted you guys to look at it. I know I got a lot here, but I know people need to really just stop worrying about everybody else around you and just worry about you and how you perform against a clock, the guy you're going against one-on-one. And then, like, look, coach always gives that information about, like, pick the schools and whatever. I have my guys do the same exact thing. Like, dude, yeah, we want a school that's like, everybody's going to be like, dude, you're never playing there. But you know what? Like, that's the goal. And then if it doesn't work, we'll work backwards and we'll check things off, right? Just like coach said about coaches, give me a reason to not recruit you. That's the biggest thing, because they want one less guy on the list that they have to take, 30 seconds of the first 2 plays of the highlight tape for them to either say, okay, that pile, or let me watch another 30 seconds, right? That's the biggest part of it. I think you're doing a good job of that, learning that whole world. Look, I have to look at it wearing both hats here too. Like, a lot of guys want to bag on high school coaches for not getting people recruited or not understanding that. Like, guys, most assistant coaches right, don't love this like I do, like Dave does. Like we've made our lives surrounded by a sport, and a lot of people aren't like that. Like they're just in it because hey, I teach, I might as well coach. They don't know enough to like or care enough, and it has nothing to do with your kid personally because I'm sure they want them to get recruited and do really well, but they're just not vested enough to go and understand the recruiting world and you know, go to a showcase on a weekend to just watch kids or whatever that is, like where some of us have, right? So it you know,
Camps to watch him. Yeah, when he was younger.
yeah,
I
you know, and look, I've taken my players to those camps who can't get there, right? Like we've driven to Villanova, we've done this, or I just always ask my guys because so much of it is done now directly to them through DM and Twitter and social media, right? Like the coaches used to have to go through a high school head coach to kind of talk to them. Now they can literally go right to them or their handler or whoever is taking care of their recruiting world, which is also like a whole different thing. Like, am I talking to his agent or am I talking to mom? Am I talking to the actual kid? Because I do think there's some level of where parents should monitor that up until a certain level. Now, look, you shouldn't be a junior where mommy is still filling out your recruiting questionnaires. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's cut the cord a little bit. And if you don't trust your kid to do that on his own, is he really a college football player?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
And I think too, like the one thing too is like you said it so great. Like if I'm recruiting a kid at that high level, I'm recruiting the family. I'm recruiting mom. I'm recruiting dad. So when you show up to an on-campus visit and you're in pajama pants, like these little things freaking matter, right? If I had a coach one time, he goes, dude, the fastest way to get a guy off my radar is when he brings his high school girlfriend on a visit. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, rule 101, dude. Like, don't be, it's funny. But look, the more you talk to these guys and network within it, like, it's such a good thing. Dave and I are also a little different because we came from North Jersey, right? North Jersey to Central, if there is such a thing. Like I said, Dave literally set the market when it came to showcases, camps. I mean, he's very humble in that, right? Like letting everybody know. I mean, Marcus Mariota, Johnny Manziel, like these guys all came through his shit, you know what I'm saying, and have done really, really well. He was also an NFL agent for a couple of years, so he's seen that side of the business. And he's got an MBA. So business is he's never been in education. So he was a high school coach as a business person, not an educator, which is a totally different world in terms of that aspect. Look, it has been absolutely phenomenal. I've taken way too much of your time, Tanya. Anything in closing that you'd like to say or plug or whatever you need? Like, this is your time.
Yep. One of the things that because of everything that I'm going through, been through, and what I've learned, I really want to help other parents. So on my website, footballmom2027.com, towards the bottom, there's free PDF. Fill out their test. What do you know about Twitter? What do you know about
Right.
Instagram? You get some feedback. I have different options on how I can help parents. Some parents have hired me to do all of the social media, not run it, but set it all up. Other
Good for you.
how to do it. But because money is a big deal to me, when people don't have it, so I've set it up that the mom who's working 2 jobs can afford the help, and then somebody that can afford more can do more.
Hedge fund guy.
Because this is real. I was a little girl who didn't get invited to parties because her dad was a biker and we lived in an apartment. So I come from that kind of a background. So we are in the process of starting a nonprofit. It'll be called Jack's Nation, so that when Jackson's in the NFL, he'll have his own foundation, do whatever he wants with it. But what it's going to be to begin with is it's going to be for kids like Jackson, that if Jackson didn't have me as a mom, he'd be lucky if he was going to be going to a D3 school at all. I jumped in, I'm doing what I have to do, but will be pay for a kid to go to camp. I've been very lucky when he had talked about to not feeling hurt feelings. When we leave Ty Coleman because Jackson coach specific, I was crying. I felt so. And Val Barnaby, very reasonably priced, but I people have gone Jackson and seen what he is, and they believe in him with me. So he helps. But there's people who can't afford things. So the foundation would be to help a kid that needs help with training. Maybe he needs those. I don't even know why the Heisems have them anymore. Maybe he can't get his own helmet. So we are in the process of doing that because I want to be able to give back. So if there's any parents out there, and you heard anything, you didn't know what it meant. You heard today, oh, he's not on the board. They're probably picturing a shuffleboard for all they know. Because I didn't even.
Well, that thing too. Like I said, it goes back to what we talked about. Like sometimes like just asking that question because you're intimidated within the room to not raise your hand and ask the question. Like there's 10 other people that have the same question but are feeling that way, right? So literally, I love it. I always say like it's like coaching in crayon. You know what I mean? Like guys hate it because the first day of practice, like I teach shit that should be like taught in second grade, and they're like, coach, what are we doing? And I'm like, dude, we're coaching in crayon right now until you build it up. And that's this whole world too. Like, and it needs to be a constant like an update on your phone because that's how fast the recruiting world and shit changes. And if you're not on it and in it, right? Like even people that are like, hey, I had a son that graduated 2 years ago and we went through it. Well, it's totally changed. So you got to keep yourself up to date.
Year mark, how much changed incredibly. So if anybody wants any help with the social media, has questions, footballmom2027.com. I build relationships. If we didn't build that relationship, stay in touch with that coach. Now, of course, he didn't reach out to us. I want to make sure everyone hears that. We saw that he was now coaching at Lehigh. Guess who's getting his first invite to a junior day in a camp? At Lehigh. That is a phenomenal, right? All because relationships. This is networking. It is a business.
Yes, it is. And look, it works both ways because that coach now, as the new guy at Lehigh, can say, hey, I have this kid that maybe most other people don't know about. And you know what? Like, here we go. And now you bring something to that new head coach, and then there you go. So it works to the benefit of both to continue and keep relationships. Tanya, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. We'll stay in touch. But if Dave or myself or anyone, can do anything for you, please let us know.
Thank you so much. It was great to be on the show. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.